Hey, Seth David here from the world famous Nerd Enterprises Incorporated, and I want to welcome you and I want to thank you for taking the time to consider my course, Bulletproof Bookkeeping with QuickBooks Online for real estate brokers and agents. Now, the exciting news as of this recording is that we're adding on the agents module to this whole course, making it, in essence, twice the course. Some of you may be wondering right off the top, why not create two separate courses? And the answer is, as you'll see once you dive in, there's so much overlap that I felt like it would be a lot of reinventing the wheel and kind of carbon copying a lot of what's in the broker course. Plus, quite frankly, I think that there's a use case here for brokers who have agents working for them where they might prefer to have one course they can sign up for and have modules for both, right? So some of that's sort of selfishly based, right? So I have, a market to reach out to with that kind of specific use case in mind. In any event, we have the course. It's already been live for over a year now. But the new thing is the agent module. Nonetheless, because you might be coming onto this page, after we've done the original launch, I'm going to review the whole entire course and everything that's in it and everything that's included in it, okay? Now, the first thing I want to share with you is that when you log into any of my courses, you'll see your kind of dashboard. Let's go to my screen. I'll show you what I'm talking about. In your case, I'm calling it your home office, right? And right here on your dashboard is going to be kind of everything you need at your fingertips. On the left, you'll see the navigation, okay? And over here in the dashboard, you'll see, and periodically I'll go in here and post updates. We recently moved the community back to Slack, so I put a little Slack video that I created here for those of you who maybe aren't as familiar with Slack. And even those of you who are, you'll probably learn a few tips and tricks for how that works and, works better. And then further down, this image actually links you over to the textbook, which I'm also going to talk about here. So pretty much everything you need is going to be accessible right here from this dashboard. I'll also periodically post little announcements and updates along those lines in the same section. Updates that I send out through the system will show up here where it says updates, right? And then if you go to sections, it's just another way of browsing what you have on the left, sort of section by section, so you can kind of quickly browse the broader sections and dive into the particular area. Now, on my screen, you're looking at the live course as of the time I'm recording this video, so the new lessons aren't live yet. By the time you're watching this video, I promise you they will be, and I'm going to show you, how I've got them set up in a little bit. But first, when you first get in here, when you first access the course, I want to make sure you're familiar with the user interface here. On the left, you have the complete list of each section and then the lessons that are in each of those sections, right? So you'll see when you get to the agents module, one of the first things I'm going to do is refer you back to this first section on setup because it's all the same. There's likely going to be little, if any, difference in how you set up your chart of accounts, whether you're an agent or a broker. Either way, your income accounts, based on my experience working with many of you, you're going to want to see separately the commission income from a listing versus buyer representation, and where applicable versus leasing commissions, right? So most of the setup is going to be exactly the same. As time goes on and you get to be more familiar with the mechanics of QuickBooks Online, you might decide on some other little tweaks that might, make this a little different. But basically this whole first section, either way, broker or agent, going to be the same, okay? Even this recording a listing or a buy is, going to look very similar, but I still have a separate module for the agents, to record this that specifically looks at it from your perspective, similar to recording expenses. And bottom line is this, what a lot of people who've taken a lot of my courses in the past have shared with me was not to discourage people from going through something. So normally I'd be inclined to say, well, if you're an agent, you can skip a lot of this. But based on feedback I've gotten, I'm not going to do that, because people have told me that even if the thing that they're learning is something that they think they already know, or for that matter, that may not apply to them, they still learn stuff along the way. So it might be worthwhile, even if you're an agent, to go through some of these broker lessons, right? The reports are going to be the same, but you'll see in the agents module, I have a separate section called useful reports for agents, where I go over specifically things that will be of use to you as an agent, and of course why, right? And then we had, when I did the original launch of this course, we had some bonus live Q&A, which I'm also going to be offering you 2 live Q&As. So these are recordings of those old sessions. When I do the live Q&A with you for this current launch, then we will post those recordings here as well. So what you're not seeing yet is section 6, which is not going live yet. The agents module is actually section 7. So let me explain what's going on there. Over here in Notion, I've got the complete outline of the course, right? So most of this is what you've just seen with the status. Let me just make some room here so you can see what I'm doing. And I'll scroll straight down because this is all of what you just saw, all the published stuff. So here's what's about to go live, right? And as you can see from my statuses, it's all ready to publish. This is all section 7. These are the agent modules, right? So we're going to have, of course, an intro where I give you kind of an overview, talk about some of the differences between agents and brokers, and in particular as it relates to the accounting. And we're going to then get into, because it's such an important and significant area for agents, is the advertising, the money you spend to advertise your listings. It's probably the biggest expense you're going to have just about on any listing. So I call that out specifically, but of course in this lesson I talk about how to record any expense, and in particular how to make sure that those expenses, where applicable, get associated with the right listing, so that at the end of the day you can create your listing report, which is where you're going to be able to pull a report that shows you all the commissions earned once the listing sells and all the expenses related, so that bottom line you can see exactly how much money you made on that listing after all your expenses, right? Over here we're going to use we're going to rehash kind of your version of a template that I created for the brokers, where I'm going to encourage you to sketch your transaction. Now, why is this important? It kind of goes into why I think a lot of bookkeeping work out there gets sloppy. And in short, it's because we're in a rush and we don't take our time to really think things through and lay things out. This also comes from lots of experience I had for many years doing a lot of one-on-one sessions with many agents and brokers. And what I noticed almost every single time walking in the door was that the reason it was confusing was because you're trying to sort of record the whole transaction in one transaction in QuickBooks Online. In other words, they were trying to pull up a sales receipt and say, well, how do I record all the expenses and everything related to this, right? And so the first thing I've had to explain to a lot of people is that's not how this works, right? Each of these transactions are going to be separate. In fact, going back to the advertising and marketing expenses, that's going to start long before the listing sells, because that's what you need to do in order to get it to sell. Right? So you're going to have expenses that you incur potentially well before the listing ever sells. So we have to know how to record that stuff. Each of those transactions are a separate transaction. Think about what that's going to look like in your bank account, right? Each one of those is going to be a separate expense. So this is the kind of stuff I'm going to start off walking you through and making sure it's crystal clear, and then I'm going to give you the process so that by the end of this, you're going to be able to run that report, like I said, and see exactly how much you made on that listing. And when you sketch the transaction ahead of time, it's just doing that preparation, right? And now the mistake we make, like I said, is we rush through this. We just want to get it done, right? But the reality is this buys you back time, because I can promise you the time you'll spend based on making a mistake that you have to chase down and figure out what's missing or where or why is going to be more than made up for by taking the time to fill out my template and sketch the transaction. And I'm going to go through all the templates that are included in this course for both the brokers and the agents next, right? So you have the expenses leading up to the listing. We want to create that listing report right away so that immediately we can see and confirm that these expenses are populating on that report that we're going to need. We sketch the transaction to anticipate exactly what we think is going to happen. And then when the listing closes, we're going to record the sale and any payouts that we have to make out of our commissions and so on, right? Then we're going to look at how to track your agent caps, right? For those of you, who have caps. And then for those of you who care to, and not everybody does, but I've run across enough cases where, some of you whom I've worked with have wanted to track who the actual client was that the listing was associated with. Many of you don't care. So I'm going to show you how to do that with tags. I'm going to show you how to use tags to track the clients whose listings the clients that you're representing on these listings. Now, why wouldn't you want to? Well, because traditionally, what, if anything, you were told to do was build the client into the customer list. The customer list in QuickBooks is where we're going to set up each listing. When you start adding the clients in and then each listing is a sub-customer, that list and then the reports that you're going to pull off that list starts getting very clunky and cumbersome, right? So the idea is it's preferential to leave the client or customer out of the customer database so that you just have the listings indicated there. And then, like I said, we're going to show you how tags work really well in order to track that for those of you who care to. And then, as I mentioned, we've got the useful reports for agents. And finally, you're going to have your choice. And of course, one of the choices is not to use either of these, but where you can use either an Airtable database that I'm in the process of building as I record this, and a Notion database. So my expectation is these are going to be fully built out for you. We're very close to it by the time you're watching this video, by the time we launch this new agents module in the course, right? So let's kind of move down the line here, and I want to talk about some of these templates, right? This first one is strictly for the brokers, right? As the broker, you'll have the Commission Disbursement Authorization, or CDA. And so I looked online and I researched tons and tons of templates to figure out, and there's different versions of this. So I kind of took the best parts of the ones I found, the ones I liked the best, and I built this little spreadsheet out of it so that if you don't have your own, or if yours is paper and you want like a digital version, you can use this. It's available to you here. The reality is this doesn't have everything that I'm going to want you to have on the sketch of your transaction, which is why I actually created this template. And this is just like it says. So you're going to look here and say, all right, what are the commissions going to look like? Here's the property address. So if you use the CDA, a lot of that information is going to transfer onto here, but then here we're going to have more details, more context, right? So, of course, we have the property address, so we know whose sketch this is. I'm just using the example to sort of cover all bases where you're representing both the seller and the buyer, right? And here, just, again, pulling numbers out of where. So that we have two different commission rates, two different commissions in dollars, but bottom line, this lets you see exactly how much commission you anticipate making on this listing, right? Then down here we list the payouts. So I have an agent that I'm going to pay 80% of that commission to as the broker, and then if we have a franchise like a Remax, then we might have a 5% royalty. And these go in as negative numbers. They're set to be calculated, based on whatever rate you put here times the selling price, right? So it's going to calculate that for you, and then of course it calculates the net. Then over here I have as an example, if let's say the agent was paid at the table, right? So we're going to say, well, initially based on this, we would get the $45,000, right? So copy that down. But if the agent's paid at the table, we're going to subtract 36, so the broker is only going to see $9,000 in their bank account. But in the accounting, we need to account for all of this. I've seen where real estate brokers made the mistake of thinking they only had to report $9,000 in income when this happens. Not true. You have to record the whole 45, and you have to record the payout to the agent and 1099 the agent. It is not the title company's responsibility to 1099 the agent, because it's not their expense. They're just a pass-through, okay? Then I have a sketch of your transaction for the agent. So this is the agent's version, and it's essentially the exact same thing, although I did add the little check boxes here, and you'll see as you go through the course where this really comes in handy. Essentially, it's a way of confirming, like as you record each one on the books, you just check it off so that you don't forget like what you've recorded and what you haven't. So if you're doing this for the broker, you can certainly use this template. It's just this, evolution time. I realized, hey, you know what? I can add something to this to make it even better, right? Other than that, it's really the same thing. Also here, you'll indicate as the agent expenses you might have paid for prior to closing. So by the time you get here, this is going to be information you're going to pull out of that listing report so that you can, this is just a double check to make sure that when you land on the net income here, that your report in QuickBooks Online lands on the exact same income number. And that way, if there's a difference, then you know something's wrong. You have to go figure out what's wrong and why. That's right there is one of the keys to why this makes the book so much more bulletproof, because you're using kind of an outside process to verify what you've got inside of QBO. It's a double check. It's a way of sort of checking your math and making sure that you haven't forgotten anything. Okay. Now here's the caps template for agents, right? Where we're just looking at, all right, your broker split is, the broker's share is 20%, let's say. In my experience, usually the broker's paying the agent either 70 or 80%. So if they're paying you 80%, then their share is 20%. And let's say the cap, and I'm indicating here, this is based on the broker's share, is $20,000. And you look at the commissions to date, right? The broker split to date on that is $11,250 based on $45,000. The distance to the cap based on that is $87.50, right? You look at the current listing price, and then the agent's percentage at 100% of gross commission right? And so this basically, you fill in what's in blue and it does the math for you. The critical part here is that listing that closes that pushes you over the threshold of the cap, and you have to kind of prorate the commission. So here it's saying your commission at 100% is going to be the 37.5. We subtract what the distance to the cap was before this listing, and so that is how you figure out your net agent commission. Okay. Now here's a template from the broker's perspective, and again, it just kind of inverts this the way it looks at it. So now we're saying, and using slightly different numbers, if the agent cap was based on 100,000, and we're paying the agent 80%, then here's the year-to-date gross commission that was earned before this listing, right? The current listing commissions. And so that's going to add up to the new total commissions year to date. And then everything here is calculated. The payout at the split percentage is going to be $25,000. So the agent commission split is $20,000, right? The agent payout at 100% out of the total will be $100,000, right? So out of this 125, we've got 25 based on the split percentage, right? At 80%, that's 20,000. Then the portion at 100% is 100,000, so the total is the 120,000, which leaves the broker with their share of 5,000, which was the remainder of what they needed to get on their split, right? So that's again, it's the same idea, but it's inverted. It's looking at it from a different perspective. So all these templates are included in the course. You'll find links to download them and all the applicable lessons. Okay. Over here, I just want to bring up the fact that you'll see this further down on this page where you're watching this video, of course, but we are going to do 2 90-minute live Q&A sessions. Now, the reason for 2 sessions really is to accommodate different schedules, time zones, what have you, but you are welcome to attend both if you're available for both, and that's something you want to do. The idea is that we're going to wait about a month, and then we're going to schedule these because I want to give you time to dive into the course and gather your questions, right? And that's the bottom line here. I'm allowing 90 minutes a session, but the reality is I'm going to show up to answer your questions. If you only have 10 minutes worth of questions, it's going to be a short session. So I'm leaving it, I'm putting it on you as the student to be a student, to go in and study this course. And my suggestion always is to dive right in. Don't wait. If you're going to sign up for this course right now, sign up for it. And if you don't have the time right away to start diving into the first lesson at least, then please go into your calendar and schedule the time right now. My experience is if you don't dive in like immediately, then we tend to postpone, we tend to blow these things off, and a month will go by and you'll be like, oh man, I don't have any questions because I didn't take the time to go through the course yet, right? Do it right away. Get that momentum going. In my experience, that's the best way to get the most out of a course like this, right? So you'll get in, you'll gather your questions. We'll have the 2 live Q&A sessions. We'll do it in a Zoom. You'll get the questions answered. And of course, that brings us to the next benefit, which I'm going to come back to that in a second, which is the community. So here we have the Slack workspace. When I originally launched this, I did the community in Mighty Networks, and we tried Discord for a minute, and ultimately I said, you know what, everybody seems to like Slack. It's what you're all comfortable with and used to. So I just recently moved this back to Slack. I only have a small number of people who are in the existing course already who have joined in here, so I'm sending emails out, reminding people. And if I go back to the actual dashboard that I showed you earlier on the course, you'll see right here the link. So if you want to access the community, you're going to click this link right here. And here is the link to another, what I think is a major benefit to this course, which is what I call the digital textbook, right? So if I click this, when you get in here, you're going to see a read-only version of this. And if you want to make a copy of it so you can make notes or something, then click File, Make a Copy. But don't lose track of the link to this one, because as I'm doing now, I will roll out updates. And as I mentioned earlier, there's a section 6 that's still missing from the outline, which I'll go back and explain what that's about near the end of this. But if I scroll down here, you can see on the left, because I've got my outline turned on in Google Docs, right? Show outline. But even if you don't have that turned on, you're going to see the table of contents here. This is very much interactive. So now let's look at the real estate agents module, right? And you can click straight down to get into the lesson. Here's that intro. And what you're going to see as soon as we get into the next lesson on advertising and marketing expenses is I've truly designed this to work and be like a textbook where you have, the different images that walk you through step by step everything I'm teaching you how to do. So this is practically a rewrite of what's in the video which, as I've come to experience it, is extremely handy because you may be in a hurry, you're in the middle of recording something and you don't remember exactly what spot in the video something was. It's likely you're going to have a much easier time of finding something very specific by scrolling through here in the digital textbook, right? So going back to the home page, it's a pretty extensive textbook, as you'll see. It's 118. That's the last part, starts on page 118. So as of now, it's 119 pages. And this is the missing section, section 6, which is basically all written. So you have the write-up in here already. But in this section, I'm going to teach you how to build a forecast for a real estate brokerage or a real estate agent, right? I'm literally teaching you how to write the formulas to lay this all out. And of course, you'll get access to the spreadsheet template. That'll be linked up in the course. But that's not live yet. It's not going to be live when you first sign up for this. It will come out, at some point in the near future. I'm not going to make any promises as to when. The reality is this is not even bookkeeping anymore. It's more of a CFO function. But I certainly want to encourage you, especially those of you who are bookkeepers and accountants who are taking this course so that you can serve real estate agents and brokers as clients, then it's definitely a high value skill you can have and an add-on service you can offer to your clients where you can say, hey, let's forecast this. In my experience, anybody who takes the time to forecast their numbers is likely to do significantly better, and especially a salesperson, a commission-based person, you really want to take the time to do that. It helps you kind of set that goal in very black and white numbers on a spreadsheet, and now you know you're chasing that goal, right? You're chasing that vision every single day of what you want. That's the accounting version, the CFO level skill version of what that looks like, right? So the forecast, again, way, way beyond the scope of bookkeeping, but I think it's valuable, and I certainly think any one of you taking this course is going to be more than capable of learning it and understanding it. Finally, last thing. I promised these two database versions. Now, the only reason is some of you might like Airtable better, some of you might like Notion better. So I'm creating a version in each. This is the Airtable version. So far, I still have a lot of work to do on it as of this recording. My goal, like I said, is to have this completely done or substantially done. I figure I'll always be adding stuff to it because, this kind of thing has a way of just giving rise to ideas where I very likely will come back and say, hey, let me add in this other thing. So when you get access to this, I'll just add a lesson in the course and kind of do a little write-up explaining and give you a link to access this or the Notion one. And you'll be able to make a copy of it and copy it into your own Airtable account. Now, of course, this means you'll need an Airtable account, which means you got to pay for it, and you'll need a Notion account, which means you got to pay for that if you want to make proper use of these tools. Again, this is a take what you need, leave what you don't kind of thing. You may not care to, but my feeling is that if we have a bookkeeper working in concert with a broker or agent, and you have a database like this that you can share, that you have all the information in a central location, in the cloud at your fingertips, it's going to cut down on a lot of back and forth communication. And bottom line, the way I like to think about this is important information that you need on both sides. It's the accounting tangent data, the accounting adjacent data is what I like to call it. It's not stuff you're going to track in QuickBooks Online. It's way more detailed than anything you would put in QuickBooks Online, but it's definitely useful for the bookkeeper to have access to this. And it is definitely useful for the bookkeeper and their clients, the brokers and agents, to be sharing this kind of information. It's optimized for retrieval, right? Meaning now I don't have to bug you. Even if we have a good system in Slack, for communication, which is something I certainly recommend, you don't even need to do that. You know where to go to find the information you need. The less we have to slow down and help each other find information, the more efficiently we're operating. And that's the name of the game at the end of the day. So, my friends, I've gone through this, pretty quickly, but I think you get the idea. There's a lot in this course. There's a lot that's included. There are many resources, and the perfect way to complement those resources, of course, is by me providing you with the Slack community where you can go in 24/7, 365, ask all the questions you want. You'll get a lot of great answers from other members of the community, but my sort of guarantee is that within one business day, I'll come in here and make sure you've got an answer. It may be that somebody already has answered sufficiently, and so I might leave it alone, or I might just write a comment confirming, Michael has already answered this perfectly. I don't have anything else to add. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And finally, before I part company with you for now, Keep in mind, if you're still not sure at this point, that we do have a 90-day money-back guarantee. So bottom line, you can try the course out. If you don't think it blows you away in terms of the value that it offers, then we don't ask questions. All you have to do is say, hey, I'd like a refund. As long as it's within 90 days of your purchase, you'll get a full refund, 100% of your money. No BS, no questions. I mean, we're happy to get the feedback if you have feedback about why, but I'm not going to ask you for it. I never want to pressure anybody about something like this. Bottom line, 90 days money back guarantee. Meanwhile, you can dive in, and that gives you plenty of time to check out all the resources and find out for yourself whether or not this course is right for you.